Only in Vegas can Centurions and Magnet Warriors make a dream come true. You guys smash the link crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more content. Now, these regionals have just been painting such extremely different pictures. Like, one event you got Draco Tail doing well. Another event, you don't even see a mention of Draco Tail even coming together. And I love this. Now, our most represented deck out of this top cut actually just so happens to be Yummy of all variations. Now, we did have two Fiendsmith Yummy, and we had a Radiant Typhoon Yummy pile, which is going to be basically inspired by Kamal's YCS Destructive Force that we kind of showcased to the world and said, you know, hey, this deck is actually able to do some crazy things, which is actually kind of telling. Now, we also had two Malice variants. Now, unfortunately, neither of these Malice lists have been made public. One thing that I will say, kind of coming out of the weekend of all these YCSs and, getting a little bit more time to kind of process here, Malice has been a pretty decent challenger. This deck has been able to really do some things, and I actually think that that's really, really strong. Now, one of the surprises I think out of the weekend here was Fiendsmith Magnet Warriors. Who thought the Magnet Warriors would be, able to kind of imitate some of the early tricks that they were trying to do in the OCG? I actually think that this is probably one of the coolest variations that we can actually see right now. We also have Vanquish Soul K9. This one's pretty normal, honestly. If you're kind of expecting a decent challenger to kind of come out and do things, I mean, it's going to be Vanquish Soul K9, honestly. And then there's Centurion Elf Note here. Now, recently, there have been a lot of Elf Note cards and a lot of Centurion cards that have been disappearing off the market. And funny enough, this deck is more expensive than every other list mentioned in this regional, which is kind of funny when you're looking at, the way that the meta is kind of constructing itself. So let's dig on into some of these lists here. So we're going to have Andre's first place Yummy Fiendsmith list. Now, the one thing I will say about this deck is time is kind of gone here, is the Fiendsmith stuff ends up being a pretty decent package for you to kind of build into this deck. Your goal is to be able to get these pieces established and kind of generate an M board. Now, I mean, how you want to build your M board, you can go with the standard Wave King Kaiser, have this monster kind of inconvenience the opponent, or you can do like the standard Yummy board with Desiree having the multitude of negate and interruptions that you might actually want. So there is something to this. Now, one other really cool thing that I see this list is doing is we are side decking Obedience Schooled. Now, even though Obedience Schooled has been limited to one, it doesn't really stop how ignorant that this card can be. This is one of those cards you can kind of see and have your opponent go, what am I actually supposed to do about this? Which is actually kind of cool. And they're also side decking two more copies of Lollipo, so you can kind of bridge into this package and kind of go, which is kind of nice. And of course, I mean, this list is forced to kind of rely on the Pyre map. Pyre is just going to be one of those great starters that you'll be able to use and kind of work with and go. And of course, I mean, you're playing Dominus Purges in here. You have the one Yummy Sprays. This deck feels like it should for the variant that you're trying to work with. So that's actually kind of nice. Next up here is Richard Tipton's Fiendsmith Magnet Warrior list, coming in at a hot 42 card. So first thing I'm going to tell you here with the Magnet Warrior stuff, you did get the little Omega Plus here out of the last set, which was, I think, one of the last little pieces that you needed. Yeah, actually having access to this card kind of mattered all that much. But one other major thing to mention about this list is there is no Berserkion, there is no Valkyrion, there's no Imperialdom, the big Omni Negate. Instead, you've chose to go with the Fiendsmith package to basically create an end board, which is actually kind of nice. One big thing that you kind of got to realize with a deck like this is I would love to have a lot more of the tools that, this deck kind of feels like it'd want to have, but you don't have Block Dragon. You don't have a lot of the dumb extra consistency that I assure you that this deck would love to have. But instead, you're going to have to make the concessions where you can go. Obviously, you're also playing triple copies of the Duotyrion. Duotyrion's going to be able to search for Magna Bonding. So you're playing 6 copies of Magna Bonding at that point. That's why we like this card. Being able to toggle into probably one of the most important pieces that your deck has is going to be very important. One other big thing that this deck has that really is just going to kind of upset and detour a lot of the meta is having access to this Naturia Beast. Naturia Beast is a huge inconvenience that just a lot of the meta is not going to have a desirable answer for. So I do think having access to this card that you can just call out and be able to roll with does matter all that much in terms of, the end game. But here you guys go. You actually have a competent Magnet Warrior list that deviates from the already established existing ideas of the meta said that, you got to have the big boss monsters to put the big Omni on the field. No, you don't have to do that. You can construct the deck. Fiendsmith is definitely a glue that is holding together a lot of these ideas right now. Maybe not for better, but it's definitely helping. Next up is Andrew's top 4 finish with the Kamal special. So, once again, you guys get to see just how stupid this Radiant Typhoon splash package is, getting 2 free monsters beamed out on the field to, either get access to the Totem Bird or, some of the extra stuff that the deck is supposed to do is definitely a big help. You do once again get to see the Tri-Brigade Oath coming down is probably one of the most devastatingly dumb cards that you can have. I know being able to roll a big negate is pretty good. You also do get to see the rest of the Radiant Typhoon crowd down here in the side deck as well. I mean, being able to have access to these cards if need be is the reason why, you approach this deck and want to consider the options for it. Also, go with 2 MST in the main deck. It's kind of funny, but bridge together the tools, consider the options, and you too can actually make this deck work. Next up is Jeffrey's Yummy Fiendsmith pile, and I see straight down here in the side deck 2 of my favorite cards. We have 2 Illusion Gates in the side deck. Oh man. So this is one of those times, this deck isn't playing Thrust, which is kind of funny, honestly, because thrusting into Raigeki and Illusion Gate are insanely broken options, man. We're in a format right now where if you can roll a board wipe against the opponent, especially against a Yummy player, I really just don't think they're going to recover from that. And that's kind of the coin flip of the format right now. It's all right, well, how good is Illusion Gate? Well, it was good enough for this deck to want to actually play it. I do see we are playing the End of Anubis and the Diabells over here as well, so you do have cards to kind of inconvenience the Radiant Typhoon matchup. Because, going into this weekend, or going into these regionals, you definitely saw, a lot more people wanting to have those options to latch on to be able to kind of slow down certain parts of the meta. And I don't really blame you for that, honestly. This just feels, both of these cards are very important, but having the Fiendsmith package, no Obedience Schooled like we saw in the previous list is fine. You're just going to be able to roll out all the goodness and go with it. And then our last list here is going to be Elf Note Fiendsmith by Brando. This is really, really cool. Look at the double Cosmic Blazer, man. And I think this is one of my favorite things to mention about this deck is, the minute that the second Cosmic Blazer touches down, I don't think you're really going to have a good matchup for this. I do see we have the K9 package in here to establish into the Ripper to kind of have an active protection. I also do see we're doing Medius the Pure Shenanigans. And this is actually a pretty small package for the Elf Note stuff, all things considered. I figured they'd be doing more Lucinas and stuff, but no. This is just, you got Medius is in here to kind of bridge into, the Theory Realize, which is already a broken card, but then you're just using the Centurion stuff to toggle through, the big windows to set up, Red Supremacy and the rest of the good stuff. definitely interesting for a regional. I definitely didn't think we would see some of the ideas present here, but it does showcase that, you know, the meta is very wide open and people are willing to test out some very interesting ideas. So please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.